There was no confusion. And then what they did was, naturally, they would have to take that from the ground and stack it and all that, but they made the dumps, and it worked very good, very efficient. And those are my two strong recommendations that I done when we first got the ducks. And it worked out very good, and we threw out all of the recommendations that they sent from the States because they didn't think of letting the air out of the tires to start with. And when you get out on the beach, you get stuck.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they worked it here in the States. I don't know what they did, but it didn't work over there for us. So we were more or less given the green light, and we did what we wanted to do.
Yeah. Now, anytime in North Africa, did you ever have any particular experiences with POWs at all?
Oh yeah.
You did?
Oh yeah. In Montour, we, when Africa campaign ended, well, near the end, the Italians gave up. And we were transporting the Italians from the front to a place called Montour. And there, it's about 60 miles, I think it was, from Philippeville and Beaune. And in the meantime, we had opened those ports up so we could bring ships in. And we were taking the Italians up there and put them on ships. And you know where they were going?
Where?
Fort Ord.
And where's that?
Right here, Fort Ord.
Oh, wow. Right here in Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz.
Wow.
And I found out because one fella came here, years later, on the fruit stand, and we started talking about the war, and he says he was one of those prisoners.
Oh, wow.
And he went over there, and he when he came here, he says he liked it so well. After the war, he went back and put himself on the list, you know, immigration, and he legally came here.
Wow.
And he lives in Salinas. And he says, he swears by it, he says, that was the greatest thing that happened to him and to everything. And I said, well, darn it, I wish I could have went with you. But that was it. And we transported about maybe 130,000 troops, Italians, from Montour, because they built just like barbed wire enclosures, and they made them into compounds, they call it, and each compound held so many soldiers, and then we were transporting them out.
And what was your role in all this, in helping with the POWs and stuff?
Well, we were in what's called the Quartermaster Corps, and they were always promising us our ducks, our tanks. I never got to the tank. I never did after that, because once I got into the duck, they made us a permanent duck battalion. And then you weren't transferred here, you didn't go there, you were that. And they took our temporary status away from us, 2637, and then we were the 53rd Duck Battalion, and we were all through the war. And then we were what they called Special Forces. We weren't attached to infantry, tanks, or armored, or anything. We were strictly a special battalion, and whoever needed us took us. And Patton needed us because he was making all these amphibious landings, and the ducks were on every amphibious landing. And the ducks would stay, any times from 3, 5, 6, 7 days on a landing to 2 months.
Wow.
Because when we got into France, we landed in San Rafael, that's on the Riviera, and we worked our way up to Marseille. And in Marseille, what the Germans had done all the way, but we didn't notice it before that, they would sabotage every seaport when they evacuated. And when they got to Marseille, what they'd done was they took cargo ships, loaded them with cement, and sunk them in the harbor.
Oh, wow.
So that you couldn't get into the harbor, no way with the ship. The ducks were the only things that could do it. And we were there 3 months until the Navy and Seabees cleared the harbor so the ships could come in. Then after that, that was our landing, and we had no more ocean, but we had water to cross. We had rivers. So Patton took us with him. we kept going with Patton, and we went clear up till we crossed the Rhine, and then there was no more rivers to cross. So then Patton says, I don't need you anymore. So we went with the 101st Airborne Parachute Division. We went down into Bavaria, and we were with them, moving them and everything, and doing whatever had to be done. And when we approached a place called Bad Reichenthal. That's about 29 miles from, or kilometers from Berchtesgaden. And when we got there, they were planning on us attacking and taking Hitler's crow's nest, you know, Berchtesgaden. It's the village is here, Berchtesgaden, and then his crow's nest is up above it. And they had very cleverly built it. It was a one-way road up, and if you met another vehicle on that road, you had to go back down or get off, get to a white spot to let the other one go by. Well, anyway, we found out that under the crow's nest, about, I'd say, a half a mile, they had 2 crack regiments of German soldiers. They had barracks and everything from there. They were protecting Hitler, you know, in his nest. And we figured if we'd have got into there, and why, we wouldn't have made it, because all they had to do was put some kind of a roadblock and then we'd be stuck. Fortunately, 3 days before we started our campaign, the war ended.
Wow.
And then when the war ended, why, that means we didn't have any reason to, you know, go up there. So we went as tourists later, you know, to see it.
How long were you up there?
Curious. Oh, we were there about 3 days, and then, but General Patton was a funny one. He followed what the Russians did, and he says the Russians are no damn good, and he called them sons of bitches and everything. Oh, he was a hard-speaking general, but he was right, because all of the other troops, they could go free into Paris and here and there and everything. And Patton was 2nd Armored Division. We had a 6-hour pass. That was all he'd give us. He was going to knock the Russians back, because he says they made the agreement that the Russians were going to stop at a certain point, and they went 150 miles into American side, and he says he's going to push them back. Eisenhower could see that he was really hell-bent for election. Why, he says the only thing he could do was relieve Patton. So he took him into Chief, what they call headquarters, in England, and put in Truscott in his place. And Truscott took over, and then we were more liberal. But then they had another problem come up. The war's over in Europe, but it wasn't in the Pacific. So they wanted to take all of the men that had come recently to Europe, and they had called a point system, and naturally we were the highest point because we were there all the time. Well, anyway, what they done then was they took our ducks away from us, and they gave us trucks, and we were transporting these divisions to Antwerp to get on the ships to go to the Pacific. Fortunately, it ended in the Pacific before most of them got there. So that was a godsend, because they figured that a lot of them were going to get killed, you know, because of the Japs, the way they were. Well, anyway, that's a different story. So anyway, then when the war ended in Europe and the war ended in the Pacific, well, then we were free to come home. Well, then what they did was they took our trucks. I don't know what they did with them, but they took them away from us, and they made packets, what they call. And those packets were numbered, and our number, I forget the number now, but we were numbered to go to Fort Lewis, Washington, or to California. And then we came into the East Coast, landed, and then we got on to, we were at Fort Dix, New